Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. This is the amber caddis that I did a little video on. I'm just going to tie it for you. There's been a few requests for it. So what I've done is I've mounted a Hanke curved hook, a BL544 size 10. You can tie these from size 6s for the big traveling sedges down to the size 16 quite easily for the small granum caddis that come off the Bull River. You can fish them in lakes, so I'll run a brass bead, a black nickel, or you can run silver or copper or gold. For lakes and for ribbills, I'll run a tungsten bead just to get a little bit more weight and get the fly to sink a bit deeper if you're pulling behind a hopper dropper or running a Euro nymphing rig with a heavier drop fly on an anchor fly. So all I'm going to do is just start with some 12-0 nano silk thread. We'll just start in behind the hook eye and we'll progress down the hook shank just to where the thorax section would be, and I'll cut off my tag. At this point what I'll do is I'll add in some amber Caddis nymph dub, and again this comes in different colors from blacks to browns, grays, peachy colors, orange, but the amber Caddis is what I used and hence the name of that pattern. And I'll just add that in up here at the thorax in a few turns, and then we'll add in a copper wire or a gold wire in this situation, and I'm running just a 0.2 millimeter thickness wire. You can also run a 0.1 mil. It's just there for some segmentation on the fly pattern. So we'll just add that in here at the front as well, and we'll progress down the hook shank with touching turns. To the back of the bend. Now you can go fairly deep into the hook if you like, and then I'll just do palmering turns coming forward, and we'll half hitch off behind the bead. So once I've done this, now I can easily just wrap my nymph dub. I call it dubbing on a rope. There's also another dubbing that Zemperfly has that's on a rope. For those people who have dexterity issues with dubbing or just have difficulty with it in general, this is a really good way of going. There's other products on the market, other dubbings on the rope as well, but they're certainly an easy material to work with. So all I've done is gone back and created some layers just to create that taper that you commonly see in caddis pupa, and we'll just bring that up slightly closer to the bead, and then we'll tie that off. And again, a half hitch at the tie-off point. The reason I throw half hitches is in case you break thread or in case you break any materials prior to lashing down. That just becomes a stop, and it's just a safety feature really. So now I'll run my wire. Oops, sorry, I will not run my wire. I'll run just some medium mylar tinsel. You can run different colors of tinsels. There's all kinds of Perdigon tinsels from hens that have come out over the years. They're different colors. They're pearlescents, but they also are translucent and they have a color to them. So it's not just the opal effect that we have now, and there's lots of different types of mylars. So I'll just bring the wire around, and my first catch, try to make sure that that mylar tinsel is laying flat on top, and you can see that there. And that's right at the back of the hook shank. And so once I've done that, now I'll just rotate my vise, or you can go hand over hand. Like I said, you just want that on top as much as possible. If it's rolled on the side, you can just force it back a bit. And now we'll tie off the wire. Again, same fashion, one wrap behind, one in front. That just weaves the material through the thread, and just a half inch. That's really securely locks it all in place. And now I can helicopter off my wire, and I can cut my mylar tinsel off at the back. So now I've created that shell back with a little bit of flash. So at this point, what I like to do is I just untwist my thread, because every time I've taken a wrap, I've sort of roped, put a twist in my thread, and it'll create a bit of a rope. So I can get it back to a flat position. It's really easy to split by hand. So this is a 12-aught thread in this case. But in the meantime, before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to just take 1 or 2 CDCs. This is just a natural CDC. You can tell by the foot ends that it's not dyed, so you can see it's a natural. So it comes in darker duns. There's probably 4 or 5 natural CDCs colors that you'll come across. And I just put it into an alligator clip. And in this case, so now I'll just trim off the tip section and the back sections, get that out of the way. So this has got 2 CDC hackles in it. If you only wanted 1, by all means you can certainly do so. It'll give you a thinner profile. You can also mix different colors of CDC by overlapping them before you lay them in the bench. So if I wanted to do an olive and black, or olive and brown, or a black and dun, or black and orange, there's all kinds of ways of mixing it. So now I'll just take my second CDC clip and grab the material from the first one, and I can now remove the stem of the CDC by just cutting it away. So there we've removed the stem. So now what I'm going to do is just open up my thread. Like I said, I have it nice and relaxed, and I'll just strip it between my thumbnail and my forefinger, and when I take the tension off, you can see how it's opened up. And at this point I can just take a small pinch of it, kind of split it fairly evenly. You can use a needle if you like to separate the fibers as well, but both ways work. At this point, now I'll put my CDC in place into that hole or loop that was opened up, and now I can spin my bobbin to create my rope. So once the CDC actually just starts to spin while it's under tension, while this thread is just under hang tension, that's when I know I'm getting close to the amount of turns I need in the thread. And then when I pull tight, it's really spun it into a nice rope. Then I run my forefinger and thumb up the thread, and that tightens it up even more. So at this point now I can just hackle in behind the bead, pull the fibers back with each wrap. A couple extra turns, and again a half hitch. You can also see in the thread how much it's twisted when I pulled it tight there. So this you want to take out as much of it as possible, so just do a counterclockwise turn of your thread so that you don't create problems when you go to whip finish the fly and have that all knotted up. So that's relatively close. I'll just give it a few more spins. So now I'll use what's called Hen's Spectra Dub, and there's about 36 different colors of it. And in this particular pattern, I'll run the 45, which is sort of a black peacock. There's a second black peacock which has a little bit more green in it. This one has a little bit more bronze in it. And I'll just take a small pinch of this and add it to the front of the thread. Just a little thin rope. You can wax it if you like. I prefer not to use too much wax. One thing with wax, especially on my wet fly tie style of patterns, until that wax washes out, and you'll have a tendency to want to elevate or lift your fly. Wax does float in water, so it's something we need to keep in mind. And then I'll just take a few turns of it, build this up behind the bead. And once we're happy with it, we'll just tear away what we don't need. And just come in behind the bead, pull tight till you feel the thread sink around the hook shank. It's always nicer to finish off a fly behind a hook, on a hook shank, as opposed to around material. So as the material expands and contracts when it's in and out of water, it won't loosen off on you. Okay, so that fly is now complete. But before I go and fish it or put it into my fly box, I'll just brush out that spectra dub and stroke all the material rearward to the bend of the hook. That helps me, allows me to create that profile I want. Again, talked before in the past about a tear-shaped profile, which virtually all aquatic insects have, and minnows.